welcome back to Biblio Fitness. It is another beautiful Friday, another beautiful day. Hope everyone makes some glorious fucking gains today. Well, yeah. So today is about dear old Father Zosima, the elder Zosima, in the monastery which Alyosha decided to reside in. This is the scene after the previous episode, actually, and I wanted to talk about it because it's actually quite beautiful. It's still very religious, but it's still a very beautiful message at the end of the day. You know, he's dying, Josima's dying, and he's starting to recount his story and recount his past experiences. And he first goes on to talk about his brother, who was like 8 years older than him, and goes on to talk about that, how his older brother started becoming very cynical. Another skeptic, a man that started hanging out with some guy that got exiled from Petersburg, and he started becoming very cynical towards religion, and he started becoming more atheist, like an atheist. You know, he started ridiculing fasting and Easter and all this other stuff, and then out of nowhere he comes down with a sickness. He was always a very sickly boy, but it really started to hit home, and he didn't have a whole lot longer left to live, and then there's this sudden change that Joseph starts describing about. Like, he was very cynical, and now he's elated. Now he's in a, some people call them mad. He really started talking about very, very beautiful things. I don't know how it can necessarily apply to life, considering how we are as individuals at this present moment in time. But it's still quite beautiful, and it's still a great contrast to the rapid individualism that we're facing nowadays, this crisis of meaning, which I'll get to. He starts really being very happy, and going out to the gardens and talking to the birds and asking the birds for forgiveness. And then when the service will come around, he's like, he would ask, like, am I worthy of being served? Like, who am I to have servants? Like, why can't I serve my servants? And he's like, and when people realize that, there'll be paradise. When you realize, like, I'm guilty, I take sin, I'm guiltier than everybody, and who am I to judge? Who am I? Like, I'm a guilty individual as well, and I'm taking the guilt for everybody. And he really started talking about that. And he really started talking about the beauty of the world, and he really started taking everything into perspective. Like, he started looking back, and it's kind of like a regret thing, but as the same was like an epiphany, looking at the world and seeing how beautiful it really is. How many of us really take a step back and realize how beautiful the world is? We're constantly constricted by our worries and our responsibilities, and we're constantly trapped inside our own heads, and we really don't take it into consideration, and we don't really take the time out of the day and see how beautiful it is. We're the pessimists as humans. But if you kind of separate yourself from all that, you really do see how great it all is. And there's definitely a lot of very heavily Greek philosophy. If you don't understand Greek philosophy, you're not really going to understand Christianity, because if it wasn't for Greek philosophy, Christianity wouldn't be what it was, because both of those messages ring true. I mean, not ring true, but like they're very similar. This one truth, this all of us coming together, all of us being, down to earth, all of us serving one another. The whole sin thing is obviously a Christian notion. That's a little added bonus for them. But it was just, it was a very beautiful thing to read. And the reason I say it's a beautiful thing is because I keep coming back to the crisis of meaning that we're facing nowadays. The crisis of meaning that I had, the crisis of purpose. And after his brother dies, he gets sent off to cadet school, and he's a debauched, very, young man, have a lot of women and money, and he's with his boys and doing boy things and fucking around. And then at some point, he falls in love with some girl. And he falls in love with her, and he's about to declare his love for her, but then he says, like, he was very selfish. He didn't want to because he was young, he had money in his pocket, and he was having a lot of fun as a single bachelor. So he didn't want to give it up. So he goes out to see station in another town for a couple months, and he comes back and he finds out that the woman he was about to declare his love to declare his love to was already engaged. Like, she's married. She's married to a wealthy man, a man of higher rank. And he becomes extremely bitter. Like, he takes it as a personal affront, as if he was led on, as if he was being stupid. His pride got in the way. His pride was injured, and we all know what pride. Pride is. It's a good and bad thing, right? The ego. And he goes on and he wants to murder. And not murder, but he wants to fight. He starts really being very malevolent and very, very, very confrontational to the fiance, to the husband of this man, to the husband of this woman, and he felt like he was led on, that she was leading him on, and why didn't she tell him anything? But then he's like, oh, but then I remember later on when he's sober and when he's clear-minded, and when the emotions have now been displaced from the events, because we know that the worst thing you could do is act on your emotions. The worst thing you can do is act on your impulses, and that's a very difficult thing to do, and that requires discipline. And that requires a lot of self-introspection as well, like you being able to separate yourself and being able to take a step back, take a deep breath, and really analyze it, and use rationality, not use reason, not your emotions. Because I used to be a very impulsive individual as well, and I used to get in a lot of trouble for my impulsivity. And in the heat of my moment, in the heat of my emotions, in the heat of my anger, what I thought that I was going to do, or the actions I was taking, were the rational things to do. But then 5 minutes later, you're like, oh shit. And you can't take back things you've said. You can't take back things you've done. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've really worked on, is my impulsivity. And that's honestly that's definitely a symptom of insecurity, right? A man that's secure within himself, an individual that's secure within themselves and confident in their own abilities, will not allow themselves to place themselves in those sort of precarious situations, right? And Zosima was one of those individuals at that point in time. He starts aggravating him to the point where they have a duel. They're gonna have a duel, back in the day when they would shoot each other for a woman. And he didn't do anything wrong. It was Zosima being all, wanting to show his big dick and wanting to prove something wrong. And he starts feeling like he's doing something terrible. So he goes to his house, he has a servant, I forgot his name, and it just smacks the shit out of him twice. It just makes him bleed and knocks him. And then he goes to sleep, right? And the day of the duel, he wakes up really early and he starts looking outside at the garden, and that stuff about his brother starts coming back to him. And he starts talking about the beauty of the world and taking the guilt of others and about the servants. Like, he feels really bad about what he did to his servant. He didn't do anything to him. And then he's like, damn, who am I to have a servant? Who am I? Like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, I'm no better than him. Like, why do I have a servant? Why do I have to have people serving me when I'm the same as everybody else? Like, shouldn't we serve each other? Like, that's what he's talking about. Like, I want to be the servant of my servant. Is all of us coming together, all of us helping one another, all of us caring about one another, all of us serving one another, instead of this dominance hierarchy that we seem to find ourselves in, even though that's an obvious integral facet of the human condition. Like, there has to be a hierarchy, there has to be a leadership, but it's still a beautiful message, right? And he starts crying, having this epiphany. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm just woke up and I'm making this video, so I'm trying to hold down these bangs so I can. So Zosima has this epiphany in his room, and he starts bawling, and he goes to his servant and he prostrates himself on his forehead on the floor, begging for forgiveness and asking for forgiveness, and he feels so good, because he looks back on it and it's like, dude, am I really about to have a duel for my own ego, for my own pride? Am I about to rob someone of their husband? Am I about to, bring despair and sorrow onto these individuals just for me, for my own selfish reasons? Am I really about to take the life of a man that did nothing wrong with me? He did nothing wrong to me. And yet here I am about to fucking go on a duel and might kill him. Which is, it's very difficult as a human being to be able to look at yourself and realize that you're in the wrong. It's very difficult for you to be able, it's very easy for people to deflect blame and responsibilities for their own inadequacies on other individuals, right? And other events. Like, the reason I'm this person, or the reason I do this, or the reason I am like that, is because of other outside forces, which is, I've never been a fan of astrology. Like, astrology to me nowadays is perverted, it's monetized. People, and 99% of the people, like, I'm pretty sure I could pick up someone off the street that they say they're astrologists, any of these girls, and I take them out to the middle of the Everglades, they won't even be able to point to me what the North Star is. And then you call yourself an astrologist, but whatever. He has this epiphany, and like I said, it takes a man. It really does take another level of human being to be able to find your own faults. And that's the biggest thing with my evolution, is being able to look back at my own faults and being able to look back and see how I did wrong, and being able to see that the reason I maybe never had a girlfriend, or maybe I've lost friends, or whatever the case may have been, it's not because the other people were shitty. It's because I was shitty. It's because I was impulsive. It's because I was immature. It's because I was still a child in many ways. I still wasn't developed in the proper way mentally in order to take on that sort of responsibility. And that's the thing I really respect. And I know it's a story, but it's obviously something we can all learn. Really be very critical of yourself. Not in a critical way where you start scolding and you feel bad, but really analyzing yourself and really finding your inadequacies and really trying to grow and really trying to be a better person, right? That's the beauty of life. It's this constant evolution. That's what life is. It's constant evolution, the new devouring the old, the new devouring the old. And if you are stuck in place, you're actually falling behind. And so Zosima is elated. He's having this epiphany. He feels good. He wants to hug everyone. He's seeing the truth, right? That we're all in this together, and we have to love one another. We have to stop being like these things and walk around wanting to kill each other for no reason. So he goes into the duel, and he lets the guy shoot him, and he grazes him in the cheek and shit like that. And then he's like, "I'm not gonna shoot," and he just chucks the pistol. And he's like, "I'm not going to fight you. I'm not." And the people around him like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're bringing shame on the regiment. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Bro, like, he starts going to him. He's like, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for doing all these things. You were in the right. I'm in the wrong. I'm about to rob your life just for the stupidest reasons. It's stupid. This is all stupid." And he's like, "Bro, then why'd you bring me over here? Why'd you let me shoot?" And he's like, "Because I'm gonna let you shoot me so you know I'm being real, right? Because if you would have said that before the guy shot, everyone would just think he's a coward." And he's like, that's the problem with the world now, that people think it's weird, that it's mocked to be that sort of individual, to be very humble, to be public with your own self-castigation at times. Sometimes it really is saying the truth, right? And damn the consequences, and damn what other people think of you. A lot of times, how many times have you felt like if you say the truth, people are gonna make fun of you, or whatever the case may be? But one of the biggest components of this whole story is telling the truth is what is going to set you free. We could talk about truth and what the fuck does truth even mean, but it's still very beautiful. People ridicule him and they mock him and they start telling him he's an idiot, and he's like, "It's okay, and like, I'm a holy fool, call me whatever you want." But then he says, "Oh, I'm gonna go to a monastery." He's seen the light and he wants to serve. Like he had the epiphany with his servant and all this stuff, and he's looking back at what his brother was saying to him and telling him, like, we're all in this together. And it still affected me, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue. So he gets court-martialed. He doesn't have to get served any time. Like, no, he doesn't get court-martialed. He puts in his resignation. But during the time, there's an argument going on in the regiment. People were saying he's shamed. Like, what is he doing? He has to kill. Like, he has to shoot. Like, what is he do? He's a coward. But then other people are defending him. Like, hey, he let him shoot first. Like, he actually won, and he actually got shot. Like, and it's a game. Like, at the end of the day, like, it is what it is. He actually tried. He begged for forgiveness, and he did it in the wrong. And that's the problem with society, is like, you can't admit your faults. You can't admit you were wrong because your pride and your social standing is predicated on you acting a very specific way, right? And fortunately for Zosima, the guy that was about to have a duel with was very well connected, and very well connected to the general in that area. And they let him off. They're like, they're going to go off as a joke. They respect it. And afterwards, he's like, oh, it's okay. Even if I did get court-martialed, I already tendered my resignation. I'm going to go to the monastery and I want to serve. I want to serve people. I want to be a servant of others. I want to do these things. He gave up all his possessions and he donated it all to the monastery. And people call him a holy fool. And so people around the town start coming at him and laughing at him. They love him. They respect him in a way. They think, hey, man, kind of strange how you changed. But people still ridicule him, like, oh, look at this little boy talking about we all have to love one another. And it seems foolish in this realm, in this world of individualism, right? You're constantly being bombarded that you have to focus on you, and it's all about you, and you have to get it done. And it's on you, like, what's better for you, what's benefiting you, and you, and you, and you, and you. So we're very disconnected from the whole. We're disconnected from the whole picture. And so as he gets older, he goes to a town and he meets this man, an older man, during the party, actually. No, there's their party. Like, they have a party in that town, and everyone, like I said, everyone's making fun of him. Everyone's laughing at him. And he's like, yo, you can laugh at me all you want. I know you're laughing at me, but I want to say I love you all. I love you all, and I want to help everyone. And then here comes this older dude, and he looks at him, and they started striking a conversation because apparently this is an inspiration for this other man. And the action that Zosima took, like, he really publicly humiliated himself for the truth. And how many people are willing to publicly humiliate themselves to be the truth, to do the right thing? Because he did the right thing and people are making fun of him for it. Because your dick is more important than doing the right thing. So they start striking a conversation, and this guy out of nowhere, it's a very interesting conversation because he starts talking about the separation of man now, how we're away from our nature, and this really affected me because it really pierced my soul. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's very cool that it's talked about in Dostoevsky. And it's like, we're entering an era where we're getting away from our natural selves, from our social creature selves. We're social creatures naturally. But we're being taught to chase status and chase money and chase this. And now the whole thing is about you have, right? This is yours. This is your property. And you deserve more. Get more. And never be satisfied, and acquire more wealth, and acquire more status, and acquire more influence, and acquire this, and acquire. So you become this avaricious machine. And the problem with that is that you're also telling the poor people they deserve more, and so this interclass conflict is going to start arising. And he starts talking about a lot of the revolutionary vibes that's going on in Europe. Where these leaders are coming down and telling these poor people, like, hey, we have to go strike and take what's ours, take what's rightfully ours. And it's becoming very violent. There's a lot of revolutions, the Paris Commune and all this other stuff. Communism is really starting to ratchet up during this time period. And the older guy is like, that's going to lead to problem, and people are not realizing that you're isolating yourself. That by you chasing these things, by you becoming an individual, you're committing spiritual suicide, and you're filling yourself with an emptiness. Like, there's an emptiness within you, and you're trying extremely hard to no avail to fill it with money, to fill it with all these things, realizing in the back of your head that what you're doing and what you're chasing is wrong. That deep within yourself, you know that you're doing wrong. And that's why people take to drink, and people take to envy and jealousy and anger at those people who have more than them, not realizing we're all the same. And it's very beautiful, and it's very akin, and it's very important to the era that we live in now, right? That we become so individualistic, and we become so separated from the whole. And I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons that we have these globalists now really trying to keep us separated, really trying to keep us isolated, really trying, like you have these influencers talking about you have to make all this money and that's the way you're going to be successful. As a man, right? As a man, that's what we're told from the very beginning. Like your value as a man is measured by how much money you have in your bank account. You know, your value as an individual is measured by just the square footage of your house or the brand of your car. These superfluous measures of success is what causes the downfall of so many people, because that's not enough. And I know a lot of people are going to tell me that I'm becoming a fool, but I felt that, you know. How many people are rich that kill themselves? How many people you think have the greatest of lives and they kill themselves and they're still empty inside? Because I feel like this rap, like I'm not saying that to be completely I'm not communist, but this hyper fixation on individualism is what causes massive suicides. How many of us have committed suicide because we're alone? We don't want to be alone. We don't want to. I don't want to run around my life alone. I think it's extremely arrogant for us to talk about and talk like we could do it all alone when we can't. And I don't want to live a life that's focused just on me. It's an emptiness. It's lonely, and you feel that. I felt that. You know, it's the worst feeling in the world to be alone. It's the worst feeling in the world that you can't, you know, that's the world we live in, that you don't even know who your neighbor is, right? Your neighbor doesn't even trust you. They look at you weird and skeptical and not sure who you are, and I'm like, damn, like, we're all strangers. We're not coming together, we're all strangers. We're all focused on what we could do for ourselves, damn everybody else. And that's what that guy really starts talking about. He's like, but the time will come when people will realize that we've been doing it wrong. And I'm starting to subscribe to that feeling. I'm not a big fan of the one truth, because that's how you know how one group subjugates the other. But I feel like if we really started coming together more, we would resolve so many issues. And a lot of the reasons that I felt like I really fell down into my own hell for the majority of my life really was now loneliness. Now loneliness kills, and I brought up and I filled that loneliness with anger and loathing and alcohol and drugs. It doesn't help anybody. And so as the story goes on, the guy starts talking to him and starts, talking about a murder he committed. He was in a very similar situation. He fell in love with a girl, but she refused him and told her to stop looking at her because she's going to marry another man that she loves. And this man, in his anger, murders her. He sneaks into her house, stabs her in the heart, makes it seem like one of her servants were the one that killed her, because he took like little articles and stuff like that to make it seem like it was some ignorant servant just grabbing the biggest thing they could find, and he got away with it. And it's something that he had to like live with, and that's why he was a very gloomy individual, because he was carrying this burden for 14 years. And when he saw Zosima do what he did, it inspired him. And it inspired him to do the right thing. And it inspired him to finally tell the truth about his murder. And how he felt like, he's like, how am I going to teach my children about morality? How am I going to teach my kid about what's right and wrong? If I'm carrying this crime, if I'm carrying this grand sin of taking another life. And Joseph will tell him the truth. Your kids will grow up and respect you for telling the truth. Well, I know about that, but then the months go by, like a couple months, and this guy's still back and forth, back and forth. This is a monumental decision, right? Like, telling the truth is not easy, right? Not easy when you know the cost. And then the night before, the guy tells him, "Yes, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do it." But then he really is battling himself, because he's also saying like, "Well, like, why do I have to say anything? I got away with it. No one served hard labor for my crimes. The guy that got caught, or whatever, the guy that got set up, he was a drunk and he died in the hospital a couple of days later. So no one faced any crime. Like, no one went to jail for this guy. Everyone was everyone went off clean. But not him. He's still carrying this consciously in himself, this great crime. And he's like, and Joseph was like, "I'll pray to God for mercy on you. And they have mercy, And so during the birthday party for this man, where he invites a lot of people, he comes out and he says the truth. And he comes out with these documents and this evidence saying that it was him. I'm the one that killed her. I'm the one that did all these things, and I just wanted to say, and no one believed him, actually. People thought he was going crazy. And he told the truth, but people didn't believe him. People thought he was going crazy. People didn't really, it's like, "Oh, these are documents," but it happened a long time ago, and that doesn't automatically indict you. So the story was that God took pity on him. You told the truth, and he immediately became sick, and his days were numbered. So the price of a life is life, right? Alchemy, I guess you could say. And he started falling sick, but that's the pity, right? Instead of serving jail, instead of your kids growing up hating you, instead of your wife and kids being left with no money, no privilege, no status because of your crime, you're gonna get off scot-clean. All it required is your life for the truth. It's a lot to take in, and I honestly cried because, and I'm tearing up now. I really started this whole philosophy journey because I focused a long time on history, but I still had a lot to grow, and I still had a lot of things to fix. And I'm like, dude, I need to read The Giants. And the reason that this chapter was so powerful for me is because that loneliness I felt for a very long time. And then I look back and I'm just like very grateful that I had guidance, and I had friends that cared about me, friends that didn't give up on me. And I know that's kind of like different, but I feel like a lot of people didn't make it because of that loneliness, right? Because everywhere you look, you are constantly being reminded that you're no good unless you have money. You're no good if other people don't think you're good. You're no good if because you can't provide, or because you don't have all this money. And how many of us young men kill each other, kill themselves every fucking day because they don't see a way out. They don't see anybody caring for them. They don't see anybody caring about them. And this whole message of helping one another and serving one another, and while it sounds like some hippie shit, I feel like if we adopted a little bit more of that behavior, we'd be way better off, And that's the biggest thing that I want to do. I want to be an inspiration, and I want to grow as an individual to do my part. I used to be very arrogant. I used to be thinking that I could do all on my own. I don't need anybody's help. Fuck everybody. I could do it all on my own. And you can't. You can't live this life doing it on your own. You're not strong enough. You don't have the capabilities. And who wants to do it alone? Like, wouldn't you want to share your success, and wouldn't want you to share your journey of enlightenment with the people you love and the people you care about, and be a positive influence on them and serve them and be happy serving them. And it really affected me. And like I've been thinking about that a lot, but I don't know, for some reason it just really pierced me in a way that I never thought possible. And I even went on Instagram and did like a little reel for Mr. Dostoevsky for this moment. And I think that this is another chapter in my life, and I really am glad that I read this chapter, and I'm really glad that I started this book. And you know, Dostoevsky's doing his part. Even after his death, he's doing his part in helping guys like me and helping other people like me who felt lost for the majority of their life and felt like they weren't going to be able to do anything because it's all on you. And it's a beautiful message. Like I said, I'm not Christian or anything, but you know, helping one another and not judging one another and realizing that we're all the same. And the whole thing about taking on guilt and all this shit is like, it's like not to sit in the judgment of others, right? And like even Aurelius says this in Stoicism. That's why you know that, you know, Christianity, a lot of it is Greek philosophy, is we're social creatures. We're here to help one another. And who am I to judge someone? Who am I to call someone else an idiot? Who am I to do any of these things? Like, how many times have I been an idiot? How many times have I been wrong? You know what I'm saying? We've all been that person. So, you know, I'm not on a high horse. I'm not on a pedestal. Who am I to start pointing fingers and stuff like that? And all of us just constantly attacking one another and criminalizing and being a victim and shit like that. Like, that doesn't get anything done. Instead of coming together and trying to figure everything out, we're still battling one another. It's terrible. You know, you have channels on YouTube and Instagram, and all of it is just bitching and moaning and complaining about the other sex, for example, or this person is doing this, or this person is doing that. Like you don't resolve animosity. You don't resolve anything like that. You don't resolve anything by showing animosity and scolding people. Like, people are not going to be very positive to that. You know, to be understanding and to be able to look at their perspective and to be able to take a step back and really understand that you were once that person as well. And you know, all we need is just a little bit of guidance. All I needed was guidance, you know, and it stopped me from being an impulsive, anger-prone individual. I still have a lot to work on. Obviously, we always have something to work on, but I've come a long way, and I hope to be able to do my part to help other people go a long way as well. This book has really impacted me. So I'm very grateful that I really read this book. Like, it didn't impact me the first time around like this, and I feel, and I just showed just another example of my evolution, right? It's actually affected me this way. And I read it before, and I really didn't think about it like this. So that'll be all for today. I know these videos are becoming a little bit longer, but you know, I'm trying to give all this shit justice. You know, the Brothers Karamazov it's a very powerful, very, very profound book. And Dostoevsky deserves his roses, you know. He really does. So, thank you all for watching. I'm sorry that I'm tearing up like this. I'm still processing it all. Still processing it. But I hope you all have a great weekend. And until next time, guys, I really do hope y'all get to read this book. It's very powerful. Very powerful. You know, I'm glad that I came at this with an open mind and willing to process the info, process the story and the message and the philosophy underlying it all. It's great. It's really great. So, love you all. Peace.